Welcome to another episode of CultureCast with host Dustin Homan. Today, we're going to be looking at Puerto Rico, so stay tuned. Welcome back to another episode of CultureCast with Dustin Homan.
XIOMARA, thank you for being here on our CultureCast. Share with the viewers a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you, Dustin, and thank you, Patrick, for this opportunity to be part of this initiative. As you said, my name is XIOMARA DIAZ-VARGAS, and I'm a very proud Puerto Rican girl. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, and also I have the opportunity to attend to the University of Puerto Rico College of Ag and got my degree in animal husbandry. And also I have a master in human resources. But the unique thing about my story is that I'm a second generation in Extension. My dad was an Extension agent. And also I'm a 4-H alumni. I grew up in the island, very connected to agriculture. And then after I graduated, I have to move to the United States. And I was working in Extension there. And after that, I continued working in Extension here in Florida for several years, then have the opportunity to work in Texas and now here in Indiana. And right now I'm serving as the state specialist for New Audience Initiative.
XIOMARA, as you were describing your path, I was thinking, you just keep moving further north. I mean, at some point, aren't the winters just bad enough where you say, no more, I'm going back south again?
Well, that's true. And I never in my life growing up thought that I was going to get this far in terms of moving. I used to come to the United States for vacations, but never was planned at that time to have to relocate and develop my life and my family life in the United States. But yeah, I have no problem. As long as I have Extension around, I can move anywhere.
That's true. And we have a unique ability to be able to travel. And I know that you've raised a beautiful family, 3 girls. You're married to your husband, and it's just, you have an incredible story to tell. And so that's one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on to CultureCast. And as our viewers can probably already guess, XIOMARA is going to be talking about the beautiful island of Puerto Rico today. So let's get into our photos. Well, viewers, as we do every CultureCast, we always start with the flag and the location of the place that we're going to be talking about. So here is the beautiful flag of Puerto Rico, unique in its own way, although has some similarities to the U.S. flag. And here is where the island of Puerto Rico is located. So to give you a little bit of a reference, up here at the top, this is the tip of Florida. And so we're looking here at Central and South America. The circle you see there is Puerto Rico. So XIOMARA, tell us a little bit about kind of the unique status of Puerto Rico and its relationship with the U.S.
Okay, well, I just want to also say that Puerto Rico is not a country, but behaves like a country. Puerto Rico has a strong cultural identity, which is why many people around the world, including in the U.S., think that Puerto Rico is a country, but it's not. Puerto Rico is a commonwealth governed by the United States and is therefore not governing. The US dollar is the currency used in Puerto Rico, but locals call it a peso or dollar with 1 L, but spelled very similar to how we spell out dollar. Also, Puerto Rico still competes as an independent nation in the Olympics and Miss Universe, as well as in many other international events. The United States gained or invaded Puerto Rico in the Spanish-American War in 1898. And Puerto Ricans are US citizens since 1917. something I want to highlight is that the federal government has been appointed the governor for the island since 1919. And it was not until 1947 where Puerto Rican people have the right to elect their own governor. And under the Treaty of Paris, Spain ceded Puerto Rico, Guam, and Philippines to the United States. And then after that, Puerto Ricans can't not vote in the U.S. presidential elections, but they can vote for their own governor.
And I know some we were talking about beforehand, XIOMARA. Tell the viewers, when you're born in Puerto Rico, are you a U.S. citizen?
Yes, you have your citizenship since you are born. If you're born in the island, which means that we don't have to apply to any type of like application or registration to get the citizenship. We are born as citizens.
And I know I was doing a little bit of research beforehand. Population is about 3.1 million, so about half the size of the state of Indiana. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know about the Olympic fact. So this being the year 2021, the year of the Summer Olympics, I'm glad you mentioned that so we can keep a lookout for the Puerto Rico flag. And the photo that we see here, the viewers may see the word bienvenidos, which means welcome in Spanish, but tell us a little bit about the language of Puerto Rico. What's primarily spoken there?
Yeah, the primary language is Spanish, but then we also speak English. In our schools, we have at least 1 hour of English since you are in kindergarten. Locals, that's the thing, depend on like the access of education you have. We have access to education, but it will depend on, in terms of the quality, is the kind of like skills that you will be developing in those languages. But mainly Spanish and English. When you go to college, most of our books are in English, but it's not the same when you read the language, when you speak the language. Mm-hmm. And those are two separate skills, which means that like including the writing piece as well. But most of the new generations, they are fully bilingual.
Okay. Well, viewers, buckle up because the next few photos are going to make you very envious of wherever you are living right now, because you're going to want to visit Puerto Rico, which is, of course, part of the goal of this culture cast. So, XIOMARA, tell us a little bit about what we're seeing in some of these photos of the landscape. What's it like there? What's the terrain like?
Well, you have the coastal area, but also you have the mountain and we have different type of like geographic areas and topographic areas. And Puerto Rico consists of an archipelago located between the Caribbean Sea and the North Atlantic Ocean, east of the Dominican Republic, west of the Virgin Island, and the north of Venezuela. The main island of Puerto Rico is the smallest and the most eastern of the Greater Antilles, and with an area of 3,515 square miles, and is the third largest island in the United States. The island has gorgeous beaches, transparent seas, as you see in that picture, colorful and varied flora, a unique rainforest, and we will talk more about that rainforest later, beautiful waterfalls and lakes, interesting caves, and breathtaking mountains. And I'm privileged to say that that's where I grew up. I grew up in front of that scenery. And growing up, I used to complain in terms of the humidity level, because the humidity level is very high. And the thing is that my hair, it was hard to maintain it straight because the humidity. And as a teenager, I used to complain about that all the time, but not anymore, because that, if I have to pay the price to have a scenery like this in front of me every day, humidity is not a deciding factor. But yeah,
amen.
The thing is that Puerto Rico, the temperature normally is between like 85 to 95 degrees. but that humidity level helps a lot because also the winds that we receive from the bottom part of like in our location, it's very good and cool down that heat temperature. Something I want to highlight is that that's where I live. That I took that picture from our farm balcony, our house balcony. That's what I see when I just get out every day. If I have to go somewhere else, but that's what I see in front of me when I'm at home. And something I want to say that the natural green is quite intense. It's all green around us, and has it's also boosts to the dry forest reserve. We also have a dry forest reserve, and the largest remaining tract of tropical dry coastal forest in the world, and an international biosphere reserve, which means that if you go to Puerto Rico, you can just maybe, if you have a bucket list, you can check off like maybe 5 out of these great things that you might not find in other places, or maybe you can find in other places, but they are not located in the same area.
Sure.
In Puerto Rico, in that small piece of land, you can find all of that biodiversity.
And share with the viewers the fact you shared with me earlier regarding the park and the U.S. Forest Service, I believe.
Oh, El Yunque. Yeah, El Yunque is the only tropical rainforest in the U.S. Forest Service. And just remember, because Puerto Rico is part of the United States, we have areas that has been classified as federal territories. And that's the thing, like for an example, to go to Puerto Rico, you don't need a passport because we are citizens. You just need your driver's license. And the thing is that when you go there, you have access to all these beauty, and then it's just like taking a flight the same way that you go to other states. But in terms of the Yunque is a rainforest, and is one of the most famous sites in Puerto Rico. And it consists of 28,000 acres of tropical palms, and then foliage that make a Yunque feel like a primitive landscape that has remained virtual, unchanged for millennia. You can go hiking its many trails, dip in the refreshing waterfalls, enjoy birds and flora, and get stunning views, as you saw in the pictures, of the island from its many viewpoints. You will be happy to know that there is no dangerous animals in that place, in the Yunque. Yes, no poisonous snakes or any big wildlife. And that was a huge cultural shift when I came to the United States, when I have to learn all about these wildlife and the things that are common in the mainland. If I compare that with like my experience in Puerto Rico, I just only have to be aware about maybe not talking about wildlife, but maybe some reptiles or birds or things like that. But as I said, none of those are dangerous or poisonous.
You have addressed every concern that I have when I travel to other countries. So literally there is no excuse for me or anyone else not to travel to this beautiful place.
Yeah, people can see that scenery as like, oh, it looks like a jungle, and you are expecting to find like these animals or the like all what people feel that a jungle should has. Yeah, it looks like a jungle, but as I said, no animals that will put you in dangers or things that can be major concerns.
I'm glad you shared the piece about the Park Service too, because I know I've got a couple of friends that have bucket lists to try to hit all the national parks. And I wonder if they're aware that there is one in Puerto Rico, and the only tropical, you said tropical rainforest, right?
Tropical rainforest, but we have other parks there that are that also are under the U.S. Forest Service.
Okay. So XIOMARA, tell us a little bit about like outside of the beautiful scenery, what is life like in Puerto Rico?
Well, like any other community, we have people that have to work for a living for sure. And I will say the people in Puerto Rico are very friendly, and everything what we do is around music and food and family. To be honest, I was going through all the pictures to share with the audience today. And I was kind of like, oh my gosh, if I just use all of these pictures, it's all based on my family and friends and people getting together to celebrate life. And I remember growing up when I used to watch documentaries about us, that they always highlight that aspect. And I didn't quite really connect with it because it was something we do normally. But when you reflect about it, and now that I'm grown up and I have my family coming back, all my family, I have to say that they live in the island. And when we visit, that's all what we do. And what fill our soul with joy, it's about that. It's just like that connection with our loved ones and our friends. And when I said loved one and friends, it's just that mostly everyone can be your family, not because we are blood related. It's just that it's easy for us to connect with people. It's something part of the culture.
And I feel like you shared with me once, Xiomara, there's like a phrase about like a way of life in Puerto Rico. Pura vida, does that sound right?
Oh, pura vida. No, that's more from Costa Rica.
Oh, okay, Costa Rica. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. I have no problem with that. We use a phrase that and it's not just our phrase. Other people use it too, like mi casa is tu casa. It's because our doors are open. My home is your my like regardless if I know you or not, like as soon as we connect visually, like we will just make that connection and say, hey, if you need anything, I'm here for you. And you are one of us.
You mentioned food, and we have to get into some of these photos because not only is the food gorgeous to look at, I'm sure it tastes incredible too, but I'm sure if any of our viewers are coffee fanatics like you and I are, Xiomara, they have had coffee from Puerto Rico. So tell us a little bit about the bag here in the photo.
Well, as any other people that have like things that attach them to home, like, and that's something I admire from anyone. I have to highlight the Puerto Rican coffee. Maybe not everyone like coffee, but the thing is that we have to recognize in this case, the Puerto Rican coffee is among the best in the world. And I didn't say that because I'm Puerto Rican. I'm not saying that because I'm Puerto Rican. I'm saying that because it has been proved. We have like the organizations that evaluate coffee. That's what they had stated. The weather and soil conditions in Puerto Rico are growing quality coffee. The island has several coffee plantations and haciendas. You visit because that's another aspect that we have. The ag industry in Puerto Rico has been developed in a way that we use it as an educational tool, and we are doing the same thing with the coffee, just to teach people like how we harvest and how we cultivate, harvest, and process coffee, and also how to evaluate coffee in terms of the different grades. And then that's an industry that has been in the island back to the early 18th century. And something I want to say about Puerto Rican people that I didn't highlight before is that the people in Puerto Rico represent a cultural and racial mix of the Spanish, African, and indigenous Taino and Caribbean Indian races that share the island, which means that in our case, like any Puerto Rican or person that has been like that is from that area, not only Puerto Rico, that also include Dominican Republic and other islands in the Antilles, like have that combination in terms of the racial aspect. And we talk about the number of people that live there in the island, but we have a lot of people, like if we have 3.1 million people or 3.2 million, just to round the number, living in the island, it's triple here in the United States in terms of the diaspora. We have a lot of Puerto Ricans that has been moved to to the United States and other countries.
I think one way you kind of see that different culture is, I mean, through the influences on the food as well. So tell us a little bit about, how that culture has influenced the food we see here on the screen. And what is it?
Okay, well, this is very unique. First of all, I just have to say, most of our dishes are based on rice and beans and meat. Could be pork, beef, or chicken or fish. But in this case, we have what we call plátanos, that is plantains. And that's a mashed plantain dish, like what you see at the corner, like that is kind of, like a mountain shape. And that's what we normally, when we go to the island, it's normal for us to have that there. Right now, what you have there is, I think it's just, it's chicken wrapped with bacon, but also have some stuff with some seafood inside. And then this is a very common thing. Not a common thing. This, in terms of salad, what we call salad in the island is what you see on that plate: lettuce and a slide of tomato. And when you talk to people, they said, "Oh, when you ask for salad, sometimes like things keep changing because culture is organic." And the thing is that, but I have to highlight that when I go to the island and I ask for a salad, I'm expecting what a salad means to me here in the United States when living here. But if I go there and I ask for a salad, that's what I'm going to get, like lettuce and tomato. And
that's good to know. Yeah. Is the plantain there, is it sweet?
No, this plantain it's green plantain. Right now, like the cuisine has been changing so much that they have something that is called trifongo. That's that piece of plantain there. It's called mofongo. And what they do now is that they are combining flavors using green plantains, sweet plantains that are ripe plantains, and also yuca, that is cassava. That's that's a root crop. And the combination of those three, it just make it like more like I will say flavored, and also it just it has become more popular, but that will depend on what you like. The bottle that you see at the back, on the back of that picture, that's a local beer. It's called Medalla. And yeah, it's something accessible. In Puerto Rico, people can drink, like, I will say, after, in terms of rules, you have to be 18 years old to be allowed to drink. In the United States, it's 21. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I would have thought would have been the same. I mean, just due to the relationship with the US, but that's interesting. I'm glad you shared.
And that's the thing, like, it will depend on like how the laws has been, like, it's kind of, when we rule for state, if it's not a federal mandate, we can just have our local, like, guidelines and laws, because we have federal and state government there.
Okay. Yeah, so
and that
similar to the state, similar to our states, kind of state.
Yeah, the government, it's very similar to the states in the United States.
Now tell us about this yummy dish.
Well, that's a lobster. And you see, growing up, it was so normal for me. I grew up in the east side of the island. I had been always like exposed to the coast, which means that most of my diet, or my family diet, it was based on seafood. For now that I live here, is the luxury to have access to that, especially living in Indiana. But when I go to the island, it's something very like common and visible.
So I think this is a really good picture to kind of show the the buildings and the development. What city are we looking at here?
Well, this is the capital. This is San Juan. This is one of those pictures that I take when I go to the island and just start having that feeling that I'm getting back home. Yeah, that's San Juan is the most populated city in Puerto Rico. And as you see, the infrastructure in terms of architecture and the development, it's very similar to what you can find around in the United States, if you are not in a rural county or rural state. But then here, this is the Coliseum. This is one of the largest Coliseums, if it's not the largest in the area. And when I say in the area, it's not just considering Puerto Rico, I'm talking about that Caribbean area. And something I wanted to highlight is that Puerto Rico, that's one of our biggest industries, in addition to what we have there in terms of agriculture, pharmaceuticals, and businesses and tourism. We have like a high demand for concerts there and performs. Like people go to the island and travel from all other places just to come to our concerts and events. It's a unique thing in terms of like the industry. And yeah, that's one of our characters, as you might just relate. The Puerto Rican flag we have our heroes too. We are claiming Spider-Man. And also a fun fact I remember watching a cartoon movie that was launched, I think it was on Netflix like a year ago, that it was a movie and it was based on, it was a Spider-Man version, but it was the main character was a Puerto Rican boy.
Wow.
And Spider-Man wear the same colors that we have our flag, the same thing like the United States flag, but yeah, we have characters there. That's another park. That's one of the basal parks. And as I see as you see in those pictures, you have like the same vehicles we can see here. Even this infrastructure in terms of like the parks and facilities, very similar to what you can find here. The only difference is the weather, the scenery, and the palms around.
I'm so glad you have this photo in here, XIOMARA, because part of our goal with CultureCast is that our viewers get to see places they've never seen before, and they see some of the unique differences, but also we want them to see that we're all one human race. Everyone has to eat. Everyone, wants a superhero. Everyone enjoys culture. So I'm so glad you put this in here. And XIOMARA, as we're wrapping up our time together, Patrick and I always like to ask one final question, and that is, tell the viewers, why should they visit Puerto Rico?
They should visit Puerto Rico because we are all part of this world. And especially like, because we are a territory of the United States and you don't have like to go to extra steps to visit a place, I will say, as citizens of the world, we should own it in terms of like looking for those things that can make us connect, not just with the place we live, it's just finding that beauty and that meaningful memories everywhere we go. Puerto Rico is a place where you can find, as we discussed today, so many aspects of biodiversity, and also people that look like you, and you can learn from each other. Tierra de Borinquen, donde nacido yo, es un jardín florido de mágico primor, un cielo siempre nítido le sirve de dosel.